Hey Nutmeggers, welcome to another edition of Primo Nutmeg. And joining me today are three old friends, Brandle.
Hello.
Chrispy.
It's a great privilege to be here.
And Seth.
Hey.
Well, I appreciate all of you guys being here. Brandon, this is your first time on my podcast, but you were on my radio show before.
I was on the radio show twice.
Yeah. And Chrispy was on there once, although he called in too, but he's actually been on this show before, and we talked about Myers-Briggs.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
And Seth, you've never been on a program with me before, ever.
Not whatsoever.
Are you nervous?
And
Not at all. I mean, I've heard of most of the programs. I mean, I actually remember your Myers-Briggs program. So.
Oh, you watched it?
You can't say watching a podcast. I mean, it's just one of those weird
we
things.
could get a webcam.
Oh,
that could be a thing.
Yeah, it could be
Nah,
a thing.
that's not my gig.
No.
Oh, come on.
But I do want to thank you, Seth. You brought this not your father's root beer ale.
It actually is his father's room.
Knowing my father, it probably is.
It's
actually.
the only kind.
Yeah,
It is really delicious, though.
it is.
So yeah, I want to thank you all for being here. You know, one reason that I wanted to get the three of you together specifically is because you three are former Bacon Courier comic strips,
Yes,
circa
sir.
2002 to 2004.
That's true, yes.
I am the chin, if I recall correctly.
Yes, a chin of legend.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you all had your own gimmicks. Brandon was kind of wacky. Chrispy was supposed to be like a 19th century type guy in a top hat and a monocle. Seth, we made fun of your chin a little bit. That was just, you know, I hope you didn't take that the wrong way.
No,
with him.
not at all.
The 10 years of ongoing ribbing and...
You know, to be perfectly honest, I actually stole that from Chrispy. That was Chrispy's joke before I ever ran with
definitely
it.
was, actually.
I think
Well-
originally it was like an offhand thing, like one day in like physics class in 8th grade where I just kind of made like a drawing or something. And it just kind of took off from there. And next thing you know, we were making pie charts with it, trying to endorse ourselves for local political positions. And
Well,
it
when,
really served us well.
when did the chin gain superpowers? That's what I want to know because
I still would like to know when my chin has gained superpowers, honestly.
Well, you know those pictures of like the cavemen where you see him like hunched over and then he's kind of progressively walking upright? If you took a picture of how Steve was drawing him from like 8th grade to 10th grade, you'll see like the general looping of the chin.
I brought the old comic strips so you guys can take a look at them.
Oh, bang it.
I still
Yeah.
have the comic where I killed Reagan.
I
I actually like that one, Brandon. That was
I
one
have
my
all of
favorite,
them
actually.
if you guys want to take a trip through memory lane real quick.
God.
Oh, I
Memory
would.
Lane, horrible lane.
So the first one ever, Chris, was you needed to find a date to the dance because
Oh, that never
you
did
felt
work
like
out
you
for
were.
me.
No, it didn't. I can tell you that just by looking at Rob Gazzo.
Because so the comic strip starts out. Gazzo asks you how it's going. You say less than superb, my friend. I assess that I am perceived as out of touch. Tell me, Robert, how do I break this stereotype? He says, well, you could go to the big homecoming dance. All the kids will be there. You say, splendid. I will attend the ball and win my peers' hearts. And he says, but Chris, all the coolest dancers have dates to dance with. Where are you gonna find a girl? Then the last panel is him as a girl.
Madame Gazzo, if you would.
You forgot the "I hate you" response from Madame Gazzo.
The real thing that's missing from this picture, though, is there's one of his eyes is always a swirl to indicate his craziness, but
Right.
the Madame Gazzo, unfortunately, is missing. This
No, it's still
No,
swirl.
it's there. It's
still
just a
swirl.
very close drawing of the swirl.
So the second Bacon Courier comic strip actually has you in it, Seth. So it's at the dance. And Chris, you're asking, may I cut in? Seth's chin is dressed up as his date. And he says, no, I'm afraid it's chin possible. And then the rest of it has Bam in it. Do you guys remember Bam?
I didn't really have any interaction with him, but I understand that he was like like a competing.
Yeah, it was another
Character.
comic strip. It wasn't even a comic strip. It was Andreas Bisbikos, and he had a a paper plate, and he had like this glove that was a fish that belonged to Mr. Anastasio.
Yeah.
and like he would take pictures of himself and they would like caption them for the comic strip.
Wasn't that like a person though? Like Bam?
Yeah,
Like, wasn't
yeah.
he? Was he like a composite of like just popular culture figures that was?
It was just
manifesting,
like he would say wacky. It was like a character. It was Andreas Bisbikos wearing this paper plate, just saying wacky things, and he'd like steal things probably from Austin Powers or whatever.
That's just silly.
It's performance art.
Another great thing about Seth in these comic strips is not only his chin, but like his bulging eyes.
Shit, I don't even know where those came from.
Like
honestly.
he's just completely insane. He's just like some kind of a mix between a frog and a banana.
No. It's not insane. It's chinsane. Obviously, panel 4 has that involved with it. So
Yeah,
It's insanity.
I did one with John Valencia. That was kind of dumb to make it for him. But here's another one. So this one actually got me in trouble because
figure.
I think it was like the end of the year or something. It was the beginning of the next year, September 03. So it starts out with me with you, Chrispy. And I'm saying, Chrispy, I'm afraid I may cancel the strip. You say, what? Why? I say, well, Chris, I really don't think many people really understood the comic. I hate to keep running with an unfunny gag, cough, bam.
Fuck that guy.
Then Chris, you say, I know we could go for a new approach. Like I manage Seth's rapping career. And then there's Seth in a furry coat with dice hanging from his chin. And he says, my name's Dr. Coochie, and I'm here to say I roll with my homeboys every day. But anyway, that actually got me in trouble because people were saying that Seth's chin was a
gonna
phallus.
say it looks like a phallus
Yeah,
because of the
yeah.
dice. And
I know, but it's
the
just because of
shaft,
the
and you can see like the head outline. And
right. So I actually got in trouble because this. One of the many times I got in trouble working at the Bacon Courier, by the way.
But you see, folks, as time progressed, that the chin jokes just wrote themselves.
Yeah, no, it
I think
definitely
it was
did.
irresistible, really.
Well, then I did another one about censorship after that, and I had to actually censor Seth's chin. Use a censored bar. And then after that, to avoid getting in trouble, I made a Brandle comic strip.
Brandon's a good go-to if you want to stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
I have no idea.
Unless we're talking about that freshman year.
Hey, let's.
Yeah,
never
we're not
talk
talking about that.
No,
But, yeah,
no, that's
yeah.
a bad idea.
I would like to note that probably the weirdest thing about my own character is how much I smile. Like I'm smiling in almost every strip, and I hardly ever smile or laugh or.
Well,
anything,
actually, you
so-
got a frowny face in that one.
Yeah, that's a little bit more accurate. I
Yeah,
think,
and then the
sort of
next
pouting.
frame, you haven't got wait, third frame, you got a smile on that. So,
Yeah, the
Work your
ratio's totally
way
off.
from it looks somewhat disturbed to complacent to just really happy again.
It's hard to master that confused expression and aloof.
So Brandle, the first Brandle strip was the infamous one with Ronald Reagan,
Oh
where
yeah,
President Reagan comes to visit. And
Just to avoid controversy.
that
Yeah,
there
now-
is
now-
it's deep pride.
now I'd like to make a comment. This was a week before he died, right? That this strip.
it was
apparently went
within
out.
weeks. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if it was exactly a week.
I think I dated that wrong on that piece of paper. I think it actually did come out like right before he died. Like it was
Yeah.
the end of the year or something.
So that precipitated another apologetic comic strip involving Brandon and.
That's what happens when you want to, give people what they're looking for, real entertainment. And
Reagan
die.
economics.
People die.
Yeah, you know.
So then there was this other one. This is a really bizarre one. It starts off with Mr. Matthews saying, now, Brandle, you need to cure the bird flu by next Friday. And Brandle saying, no problem, Mr. Matt. And then all the other Bacon Courier comic strips come out. E-Tac Noxon, Bam, Pencil Man, The Principal, Orbis. You guys remember any of those other ones?
Pencil Man.
Yeah, I have to say, I don't.
These were
remember.
Isn't
other
that like a
Bacon-
Windows Word?
I
figure
remember
that, like, answers questions
E-Tac.
for you?
It sounds like a Mega Man villain to me, but then
Yeah.
again,
That'd be a
A lame
terrible
one.
robot master.
well, I mean, just
I don't know.
think
You
of
ever
the
been
levels.
stabbed by a pencil before? It hurts.
Yeah.
And not to mention the graphite
Well, actually,
breaks off. It's
Mr.
awful.
Matthew takes Pencil Man and stabs the principal with him.
Yeah.
That's a good use for him.
Chrispy, you actually save the day in this because you show up and then you
Okay.
use magic to make them all disappear.
Oh, so I have magic powers.
How about that bird flu, though? Kind of just
Well,
kept
I have
going.
a question for you, Steve, as we're going through these. Do you ever, when you look at these sort of pictures in time, do you ever go back to the mental state you were in when you were making them and thinking, like, what was I?
Do you think
Where
he
wa-
ever
where was my
left that
mind?
mental state?
Well, this was one that I think kind of maybe delves into that a little bit. So it starts off, it says Bob Field and Friends. Like, it's supposed to be with Bob in it. And there's you, Chrispy, like playing the role of John, saying, Bob Field, are you sleeping again? He goes, uh-oh. And there's Gazzo in an Odie costume. He says, wait, why am I Odie again? And I say, Ensel Nermal. Then you see this, where it looks like Zippy. It says, ahem, so Bob Field, are you going to mail me to Abu Dhabi today? But it's actually Seth screwed up, and it's Zippy, and I yell at him for not being it's supposed to be Nermal, not Zippy.
Yeah, and Seth's.
But I like this panel because it's showing what's going on in my mind. There's a thought bubble, and then there's a fish, and there's a squirrel, and the fish is saying, "You knew this wouldn't work," and then the squirrel is tugging on the fish, saying, "Take me home, mommy." This is supposed to be Patrick and Rob.
I think most readers probably picked up on that. at the time.
Definitely.
And then it turns into like a Captain Planet thing, and I'd say at the end, I don't even get this stuff anymore. It says Captain Pocket, he's our hero.
It's really a potpourri of mimetic humor involving our friends.
Yeah.
Which is what I love about it. And
then this was the finale where you say goodbye to everyone. And actually, you are crying in this one, Chrispy.
Well,
I don't quite go that far, but
yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a Chrispy tear in all my years.
But I guess my question for you guys is, over the course of the 2 years that I was doing this, how did you feel about being comic strips in the school newspaper?
I forgot about it a lot.
Like, did it ever get on your nerves? Or, I mean, it must have been weird for me to be drawing these comic strips about you guys.
Not really. I mean, I quite enjoyed like seeing the caricatures of all our friends, and I thought a lot of them were, even though you were using very kind of odd, what might seem like very odd references, I thought a lot of them were very on point in terms of capturing the our characters, because it's sort of like, you know, the way it's like TV in a way kind of like shapes how we think about ourselves, and a lot of times it's like it's sort of like life is like a TV show when we kind of take on these roles as characters.
Well, especially in high school.
Yeah, to almost silly degrees, and I think that these comics really bring that out, and I really appreciate that aspect of it.
Well, they were fun to draw, I'll say that much. But I hope I never offended you guys or anything.
I'd like to make a comment. My kid never got me laid. I'm very disappointed in that, Steve.
Despite its size and phallic shape.
Yeah, and that would be the one thing that I bring up through the whole comic thing, especially since you did get in trouble for making my chin a phallic.
Again, I got into a lot of trouble for different things. Yeah. Do you guys remember the drug survey I did once? I like surveyed the class for what drugs they did, and then I got in trouble about that.
There was a surprising outcome to that survey, wasn't there?
Well, yeah, it was like the majority of kids had been drinking and smoking, and it was like really high on the hard drugs too, like 10% had heroin or something.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it was. I think if you had made like a pie graph out of that, it would have been like the whole 99%, and then like me as like the sliver. I've never tried anything.
You have to. Yeah, no, you got me in that same boat, Chrispy.
Oh, so like 1 point.
Yeah, 1.2. Yeah.
And when he did that pie graph, I hope it was represented within Seth's chin. Yeah. Because
I did use his chin as a pie graph once in a class speech, actually, when I was running for class office.
Oh yeah.
But there was another story too that Patrick and I did together, where we essentially made up the story that there was rats in the cafeteria, and like we were like interviewing all the lunch ladies, like, what do you have to say about rats in the cafeteria? We got a good quote too. One of the lunch ladies' responses was, "You mean rats or people rats?"
That is a pretty good quote.
Yeah, it's definitely quotable.
That's new journalism for you.
There was all kinds of things. There was one where the school had like locked kids out of going on like eBay and getting their Yahoo Mail, and like I wrote like an article telling people how to get around that, like go to like the British, like the UK eBay site and shit like that.
So you were quite at odds with probably the school staff a lot of the time.
And then we did one once too where it was a picture of the Bacon Courier in a toilet, and the headline was, "This paper is what?" And the first line is Derek Farrington saying, "This paper is shit." It was just this article criticizing the paper. There's some other ones. Oh, remember the Rate My Teachers site?
I do, yeah. Is that
Still exists.
Yeah.
It does
I-
exist.
I wrote,
Oh, yeah.
I wrote about that and like was like listing everyone's like what they were getting.
What do you think?
Did you when you were coming up with these, did you just like sit around trying to think of the most contentious topics you could to see what you could get away with in the
I
paper?
guess so. The Bacon Courier was funny because everybody was really lazy. Like it was a class. It was a class that Mr. Anastasio had 7th period, and people would just like screw around. And because they had like journalism privileges, they would just wander around the school and not do anything.
Yeah, scoping out the.
So like I would actually like write all these articles, and because I was the one producing anything, it would just I'd get most of them printed. It'd be like half the fucking newspaper would be shit I had written.
I think actually in the same issue as the comic Where I Killed Reagan was Patrick had done a survey on how students deal with stress. And for some reason he asked me, which is a terrible idea. And I believe all I said was, I don't care. His response was, that's not a very effective method of dealing with stress, but hey, if it works.
But it was fun for me. So I wanted to talk to you guys about The Simpsons too while you're on, because we all grew up together, and I think we were all big Simpsons fans, and they actually just recently started a new season. Have you guys watched the new episode?
What number are they on now?
Not even a little.
The last one that they aired was number 575. Actually,
Oh, wow.
576 is tonight.
Egads.
Yeah.
Tonight's is like I was reading the synopsis of it. It's Homer's barbecue gets stolen, so Bart and Lisa have to try to find it.
Yeah,
Really
it's- well,
digging deep.
Well, it could be on the surface it might look boring, but I'm sure there's something.
I watched the first episode of the season last week, number 575, and it was this thing where Homer and Marge break up, and then Homer starts dating this pharmacist, and there's this really weird scene where like they're like popping pills, and it's like this psychedelic weird thing, and that was kind of cool. But like the whole rest of the episode is stupid. Not to spoil it, but it was ended up being a dream sequence. It was all Marge dreaming about what if she did break up with Homer.
Haven't they done
Lame.
episodes like that before though, where they like kind of
Yeah, well,
separate.
they're kind of doing the same thing.
treading water? How do you tread water after like 600 episodes? I don't get it.
Yeah.
You really have to be.
Well, so I've been DVRing The Simpsons all summer the past few months, and I've been watching them all over again because FXX has every Simpsons ever, and they show like I don't know, they show multiple episodes every night. So I DVR'd them, and then I can watch them in order of how they aired. Kind of was able to see the devolution of the series over time. But actually, in doing that, I think that it actually did get better a little bit after the movie came out. Like,
Yeah.
I think the worst era of The Simpsons was like 2000 to 2006, maybe.
I sometimes see people say that there was like a second, like a silver age, if you would, of The Simpsons that was like around season like 14, 15 or something.
No, those were the worst, I think. Like
I don't have the seasons straight, but I'm something
like the
that.
Ray Romano episode. Do you remember that one? That was like
No.
season 16.
Just hearing about
Why?
So
Just why?
Just in comic terms, that Silver Age just became the Bronze Age. So it's just completely worthless. Don't read it whatsoever. Or watch it in that,
I don't know. I think that I think they ran out of ideas, and the writing got really shitty around like season 10 or so. And then remember like the Loch Ness Monster episode, like around that time.
When they drained the lock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like the one with Mr. Burns and the $1 trillion bill, and like they go to Cuba, or like, there were a lot of like really shitty ones around that time. Like they were just dumb. And like after the movie came out, I think they're a lot more wacky now. They're a lot more like kind of psychedelic. Like I was saying in that episode that I just watched kind of sucked, but like they had this really trippy sequence when they're supposed to be on all these pills, and it's just really psychedelic. And generally the show's gotten that way, I think. It's kind of like an anything goes type situation where they're having this crossover with Family Guy and Futurama, and like the couch gags are really kind of long and complicated, a lot more.
It's gotten really artsy. There was one where they used a bunch of what's his name, Bansky's art as inspiration for the intro, and it's like, all right, cool, guys. You're trying to bring in some popular counterculture, but it seems a little useless. Like,
Yeah.
if the like best part of the episode is the intro, and then all the stuff they had written is just kind of meh, might as well just hang it up.
Yeah, I think they're good at like the weird stuff. Like there was this episode where Kodos and Kang usually are like Halloween episodes is when they showed up, but they did this other one where it's a regular Simpsons episode. They come to Earth, abduct the family, then they go back to their home world, and like the whole episode is set on their home world, and it's all this weird crap. But it's it's kind of funny and it works. I think they're good at doing that stuff, but it's like the normal, Bart and Lisa have to go get Homer's barbecue back. I think
it sounds kind of soupy if you ask me.
Yeah. Or like I just watched this other episode from, I don't know, season 21 or something where Bart nurses this pigeon back to health. And it's like, didn't you already kind of do this with the egg thing, with the bird egg?
Yeah, because he killed the mama bird.
Right.
Yeah. How could they not start to double up? They've done everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, the other problem I have is just the fact that you've even mentioned they're doing Futurama as well. So, I mean, they're not running it currently, but when you started talking about the Silver Age version, you had Futurama start up at that point.
Yeah,
So
which
some of your gags might have just gone over to that.
they definitely, it was Matt Groening art, but like the people who wrote it were completely separate for the most part. Cool thing about that is, as far as Futurama, how much actual inspiration they took from science fiction instead of just trying to make jokes and jokes and jokes.
No, most definitely. I was watching
Cool.
another random YouTube video at the comic book store the other day. That's what I do when I get bored.
That's right, kids. YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. It is the wave of the future. If you're not watching this podcast through YouTube, you don't know what you're doing.
Don't watch it.
And you're not watching it. It's our only platform right now.
So, but they were just discussing the random like mathematical formulas and stuff that all went into it, which is kind of cool.
Yep, and then there was even one in The Simpsons, the Homer's donut-shaped universe. That's actually mathematically sound, surprisingly, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I've heard of several different things like that. There's even conspiracy theories about The Simpsons, like predicting bombing Libya and things like that. Or like, there's another thing too where they supposedly predict that Donald Trump was going to be president.
Yep,
and now he might be.
It's a possibility.
There's another thing too. There's like a 9/11 thing for the episode where they go to New York. There's like there's like a bus fare ticket and it had like a 9 and then a picture of the Twin Towers.
Oh.
So. But I want to ask you guys first of all, what are your favorite Simpsons episodes? Like if you had to pick like one Simpsons episode that you think best represents the series, what would you go with?
Ooh, that's two slightly different questions there, I think.
Yeah, perhaps. But what's your favorite then?
Do you want to go first? Or?
Yeah, I really like the one with the fighting hellfish.
Really?
Yeah, I love that episode.
That's like a later season, or not? It's not later, but it's
season
like
7.
Season 7.
Yeah.
So they were getting a bit wackier.
I loved it. It was a grandpa-centric episode. You can't go wrong. The guy was great.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick.
The Hellfish Bonanza.
Because I know the earlier seasons, they weren't that funny. They kind of had like cool perspectives and things for like the cinematography of the animation. But I don't know, like I think around like seasons 3, 4, like those are really the golden era. Like that was like the Conan O'Brien era, I think.
Well, they were kind of like within like the range of classic seasons, which goes up to about like 8 or 9. There's sort of like the first part, which is the more story-based social commentary side of the Simpsons.
Right.
And there's like the kind of the wackier, like, Hank Scorpio kind of.
Yeah, that was a great episode.
That was really
kind of classic Simpsons, which is the one are the seasons I'm personally more familiar with.
Right.
So I kind of think of them more when I think of the Simpsons, but I know for a lot of people, like, season 4 and season 5 are just untouchable. And I mean, they are like really great in terms of their writing and characterization, but for different reasons.
Yeah. I don't know, like I kind of think of like the classic great Simpsons episodes. I kind of think of like the monorail one, like that's a good one, or like Cape Fear, the Sideshow Bob one.
Yeah,
But-
I remember with that one when I was little watching it at my grandma's house. The scene where Sideshow Bob like starts stepping on the rakes,
Right.
and he does it. He does it for like 2 minutes. I couldn't even believe they were doing that on TV because it was so funny to me that they would just take something and just like drive it into the ground like that.
Yeah.
I was laughing so hard. I was,
And they've brought that back too for like later seasons that I've been watching. Like every time they have a Sideshow Bob episode, they have like a.
I know they did it
Go back
once.
to that.
Didn't they do it when he like became the he like supervised the dam construction? Like
Yeah, they did it there. They had one where they went to Italy, where he was like living in Italy, and he had a son, and his son stepped on a little rake. And then there was another one too, where like he switched his faces with the Simpsons' next door neighbor, so he could live next to them. And then he ended up stepping on a rake somewhere in there too.
So Ned Flanders, he switched his face with. Ned
No, it's
Flanders.
on the other
Other
side.
Oh, the other side.
Generic
We
neighbor.
Yeah.
have a generic neighbor. That's a new one.
There's always a generic
It
neighbor.
was like some guy that had just moved in or something.
Oh, Gerald Ford.
No.
That was
Different
good.
episode.
different occasion. Son of a.
I loved how Gerald Ford was just Homer.
Yeah,
Like,
Homer.
want to
Gerald
drink
Ford.
beer, eat potato chips, and watch football? Woohoo!
So when did you guys start? Well, I guess you didn't answer.
I didn't answer. That's I was hoping you'd skip over me. I'm sitting in
difficult
the
of a
class.
question.
No, actually,
I-
thought of it.
Didn't do his homework.
I wasn't told about my homework. I usually come into these things half,
Well, pick
aware
one.
of it.
Oh, Seth.
I'm gonna have to go with the Radioactive Man.
When they were doing
one-
the shoot.
Not when they were doing the shoot, but the first comic book.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's an
yeah,
episode.
That's a really
like
early
season
episode.
2 or
but
something.
They were
That was
fighting
one
over
of,
it.
Yep, and they're
Yeah.
fighting over in the treehouse. And again,
Yeah.
maybe because of my comic background, or maybe because I have history with that episode. I don't remember the exact story, but I apparently have that on VHS somewhere in my house.
Really? There are
Because-
VHS Simpsons? Oh, you
No,
taped it off of
we
TV.
taped it
Okay.
because I missed it. It was a double episode that night.
Mm.
And I couldn't stay up for the second episode, so they taped it for
8:30
me.
is too late.
Yeah, 8:30 is way too goddamn late for me. I'm sorry. There'll be a bleep in there.
My dad has this funny story about how my dad's bald like me, and he was racing home once to try to see the Minoxidil episode where Homer grows his hair back and then his car broke down. Just trying to get home to see that. You know what is another great episode too is one of the Treehouse of Horrors where they do like the Shining one, the Shining.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, is that the one where they do?
Hey,
Is that the one
got
with
the shinin'.
3D Homer at the end?
Yes, I think so.
Is it?
I'm
That was a
pretty
good one too.
sure. Something.
It's kind of hard to
something.
remember the Treehouse of Horrors because
Yeah.
they do those different bits.
Anthologies and all
No, it
that.
is coming up on.
I think it was the
fall.
same one as the time traveling one,
Oh,
Yeah.
or
which that was pretty awesome too. Then that
yeah,
was like a
makes sense,
weird
'cause
one
Willie
too back
died in the
then.
first one, so he
Yeah.
would have been killed in the other ones too. Yeah, that one's a good one too.
Died from a rake to the back.
My favorite episode is probably Homer's Enemy from season 8, so that's a really kind of a late one. That's the one.
Well, not
Are
really.
you talking about Grimy?
yeah,
Yeah,
Frank Grimes
Frank
episode.
Grimes.
They brought him back,
Yeah, I heard about that, but I
It
didn't
I
wasn't
think
want
it was
very
his
good.
son or his brother or something.
No.
I didn't want it to sully my memory of the original episode,
Yeah.
which to me is like the whole premise of the episode is basically they were wondering what it would be like if they took like a normal person and put him like in the world of The Simpsons. And to me, it just has like this sort of dark existential humor about it, which they would kind of run with in 10 years later in Adult Swim with like almost all their shows. But for me, like the scene where he comes into the house, the Simpsons household, and he it's like opulent to him, and there's
Right.
like all the pictures of him with the president on the wall, and
Right, and in
that
space.
scene of like everything coming together like that. That's like when I was thinking of like chin jokes in high school, like that was my picture of it. Just like perfect, like all the stars lining up for this kind of absurd thing to happen. And really, to me, it's a very it's where a lot of my own kind of sense of humor comes from, is like
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Well, I think like our whole generation, like everybody our age, our sense of humor was really defined by the 1990s Simpsons episodes.
Oh yeah, like all like, you know, comebacks and like timing and stuff. That's all like very Simpsons-y kind of.
Hell,
Yeah.
I only had a treehouse because Bart had a treehouse. That's the only reason I wanted it.
Here's something I had a question for you guys about. As long as we're talking about favorite episodes, do you have any favorite lines from the episodes? Or...
Well, I always liked the bit from the episode where Homer like unionizes the nuclear power plant,
Yeah.
and he's standing in line, and it's that dental plan. Lisa needs braces. Dental plan. Lisa needs braces. And he
Oh, yeah.
drops the pencil in his ass. Broke my concentration.
He just goes back to it.
I just like that.
plan.
Lisa needs braces.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Some of those episodes, man, like every line was like classic.
Oh yeah, like, and the jokes would just like stack on top of each other too. Like one punchline is good enough to be in like better than any comedy show that's out there like today on TV.
Right.
And on top of that, there'll be like another joke that good bouncing off of that one. So it'll be like, you know, in that episode I was talking about Homer's enemy, you know, Frank Grimes will be complaining about Homer being asleep in a radiation suit, which is funny enough. And then they'll say like, well, what's your problem with this guy? And he's like looking at then he goes over to the board and like looks at the statistics for the plant, and it's like, you know, accidents have doubled and meltdowns have tripled. And then on top of that, Lenny will say something like, oh, you got to relax. That's why pencils have erasers. So it's just like on top of jokes, which are just all like really like witty. And I'm constantly like thinking about them when I encounter things. And I don't know about you guys, but like when I encounter things in everyday life, I'm constantly thinking about jokes that I saw in The Simpsons related to like, you know, whatever I saw, like eggs or dental plans or whatever.
I don't
It's
think
always
I
stuck
actually think of them. I think they just kind of like worm their way in.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I'm like, wait, why did that hit me? You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's like embedded in our subconscious. You know?
Exactly. All those repeats between 5 and 6 o'clock
Yeah,
every night.
That was
Fox.
every day.
Yep.
And tell me if you guys ever had this happen, because constantly when I was in school growing up, I would think of a Simpsons episode or quote something during the day, and then I'd go home and that same episode would be on that night. Ever have that happen to you?
It's that much of a pattern.
Yeah.
I think that's called synchronicity, right?
Well, let me ask you this. When did you start to realize that The Simpsons was losing its steam? Because for me, it was the Loch Ness Monster episode, which is probably like season 10 or something, I think.
There is actually a line I like from that episode that is actually kind of a cop-out on the writer's part, but I don't really remember the whole episode, though. It's the line where they have to do something with the monster, and then Mr. Burns says, I've got this, and he kind of rolls up his sleeve, and he walks over, but it pans out, and they're back in the helicopter. And they were like, Mr. Burns, that was amazing. How did you do it? And he goes to explain. He's like, well, you saw how it happened. So obviously the writers couldn't think of anything, but they just
Yeah.
kind of made this cheesy.
I noticed they do that a lot nowadays, actually. They kind of they make a joke about like how lazy they are, you know?
Yeah, you can only go so far with that, though, you know?
Like there was some scene in a recent episode where Lisa was like going through like cards of like members, like memberships that she had for different groups. And it was like, I don't know, all these like things where it was like play on popular groups, but I don't know. Then she just kind of like threw it away at the end. It's like, and etc. You know, like they didn't really run with it.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed also when you started to get into the later seasons, it would obviously the Treehouse of Horror episodes were all anthologies, you know,
Right.
just little chunks. But there were regular episodes that played out like anthologies. I can't remember like specific names or anything, but it would just be like the first 8 minutes of the show.
Yeah, it
It'd
has
be like,
nothing to
this
do
is
with
going
anything
on.
else.
And the next 8 minutes, yeah, exactly. And like by the end of it, you're like, well, how the fuck did I get here?
I wonder if they just were letting the writers trade off or something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that just comes back to like the lazy factor. It's like
Right.
I wrote this much of an episode. What do you got?
All right, we'll run it. Damn it. It'll work. I swear. Smash
Well,
it together.
To your point, Steve, I think what happened for me was it's not that I started noticing that The Simpsons were getting bad, but there were other things that were cropping up at the time. Because in the 90s, like in the mid and late 90s, The Simpsons was considered an edgy show.
Right.
Like, I got in trouble for watching The Simpsons. I don't know what your guys' households were like.
Ren and Stimpy was a no-no
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
me.
I wasn't allowed to watch it. And then shows like South Park came along,
Right.
and then Family Guy, and those kinds of like, I was going to bring this up a little bit earlier, but I think one thing that happened with The Simpsons is that role of like The Simpsons being this kind of edgy show about this oaf who will try to get away with anything, or at least the show was largely about Homer to me anyway. Kind of became eclipsed by other shows, so it lost that niche.
But those other shows like borrowed largely from
Yeah,
the
they
way the
did. They
Simpsons
kind of
work.
took what they did, like especially Family Guy. They took what they did and kind of like, amplified it. Like
Yeah.
there were some like somewhat non sequitur things in The Simpsons that I would always really enjoy. Like when in this episode where he's looking for his mom, and he comes up on this gravestone, and it's not his
Walt
mom, it's
Whitman.
Walt Whitman. I didn't
Damn
know
you,
who
Walt
that
Whitman.
was when I first saw it, but
Yeah.
I knew it was something. So to me, it was hilarious that he was screaming about it. But that's like, so when I saw Family Guy, and that's like all that they do,
Right.
I was like, wow, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. I remember Family Guy was hilarious when that first came out. And now you watch those early seasons and it's not even that
Oh,
funny.
it's almost unwatchable. So
Yeah.
the early,
I remember being heartbroken when it got canceled. I couldn't handle it.
yeah. But I guess my point is that The Simpsons kind of it sort of lost its footing to me, and when I go back to it, it's because it's just it doesn't have the same because it's always, that show is to me is really just about like character humor,
Right.
like these great, like a whole huge cast of great characters,
Voiced mostly by Hank Azaria.
Yeah.
yeah, but which have mostly just become sort of parodies of themselves in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know is
think
how I
you're right.
feel about it.
Definitely.
Did you guys notice though, like Brandon and Seth, did you notice it getting bad over time, or there's certain episodes that kind of highlighted the show's downfall?
I can't think of a specific point, like Chrispy
Yeah.
said, where it was just like, no, I can't do this anymore. But there's examples that pop up, like
The one where they go to Brazil, remember that one?
vaguely.
Or
but-
like when they go to Africa, a lot of those trips ones. The one when they went to Japan was okay, it was
Yeah,
tolerable.
It was all right, but there was one. I don't know. It was probably got to be like 8 or 9 years ago now. It was Ned and Homer got Vegas wives.
Yeah.
It was stupid, and it was another one of those ones where it just felt like it just was a bunch of stories that just got pushed together because. I don't know. Was it during the writers' strike? Maybe.
Well, either that or they got the same writers writing Spider-Man 3. You got all the villains in there. I mean, it's just like that type of thing. I hate to
Yeah.
bring it back to comic books again.
I don't mind that. It's just, ugh.
Well, too, we're really focusing on The Simpsons, but if we pan out a little bit, I think that the culture in the 90s generally was really just different and cool and, I don't know, smart in a lot of ways, like Ren and Stimpy or Seinfeld, or I don't know, you could just go on with like everything that was on on TV back then. And now culture sucks. So what happened? Like, why did that happen? Is it
Well-
because of technology, or just that were Gen Xers just smarter and funnier than millennials?
We're also lazy. Don't forget that.
Yeah,
So
the
people-
laziness factor is something we should be factoring into this.
Yeah.
Because we are the future technically, and what are we doing? We're podcasting right now. I mean,
Well, it's
Dude,
doing something.
well, no, but it's adding to what would be the downfall of cable television. I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to watch The Simpsons, or are you going to listen to us for an hour
Well,
or so?
Most people
TV's
watch The
dying.
Simpsons.
It's- TV's gonna
I
go.
think I don't think culture is dead. I think the platform has changed since.
Exactly.
Like it's kind of the same that like if you listen to the radio nowadays, you would say like, what the hell happened to music? But a lot of the best writing on TV, I mean, I haven't seen any of it personally, but what seems to be in vogue is like stuff like, series that like serial shows, like
Yeah. Like the dramas,
like the dramas,
because
like,
Mad Men was a big one.
yeah, or Breaking Bad.
Yeah, I never
Walking
watched
Dead.
that.
Which are, again, I haven't really seen them because I don't have. Like,
Mad Men was a great show.
Yeah, but
Did you watch The Sopranos?
no, I didn't.
I think it's kind of stylistically similar to The Sopranos, even though people aren't getting shot.
But I think
Except when they get shot. Like
Who
in
got
the
shot
first
in Mad Men?
episode. Oh no, I was thinking of Breaking Bad. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think those kind of shows have the capability of also being very smart because you can get direct feedback on what is happening as like a writer. Like you can just go straight out and ask people what they think, like on Twitter or whatever outlet you can.
Right.
And that has its own advantages and drawbacks, I think, in terms of its creative effects. But it's like a different.
Because you think people are too responsive or something, or writers have to deal with the public too much?
Well, I think that there is a temptation to let the whims of there's a way that you can be smart about it, and there's a way that it can kind of just become like pandering to, because it also gives you the capability of pandering more to the crowd as opposed to just like giving them something that they don't even realize that they want.
Not really challenging them.
Right. So you have to really, and especially in like within like a corporate structure, I think that kind of discipline is very difficult to maintain.
Yeah. Well, even I think a lot of that stuff in the 90s, it was hard for those shows to get a break. I remember hearing about Seinfeld, and like Seinfeld barely got on the air, and then when it was on the air, it barely stayed on the air. They were about ready to pull the plug on it because people weren't really getting the humor at first, and like the audience had to adapt to the show.
Yeah.
Well, that and they were using Nielsen families, like I think they still do for TV, and
Right.
like you're dealing with people who'd been watching sitcoms of very standard variety for like a good 20 years. And then you throw something different at them and like, yeah, you're going to have a new audience. But those Nielsen families are just going to want the same stuff that they were always getting. And unfortunately, then you have that sort of confusion.
And to be fair, there was crap in the 90s. I mean,
like if you
Family
just take, like,
Matters,
Seinfeld
Step by
to be,
Step,
representative of
Boy
the
Meets
90s.
World.
The whole TGIF lineup.
Yeah, TGIF lineup pretty much
And
was
I
shit.
noticed like a lot of cartoons that I kind of look back on with rosy-eyed nostalgia about are like that too. Like I actually sit down and watch it and I'm like, this really isn't like that great. It's probably only great because it's like such a primordial part of my memories.
Exactly. When
Wait,
you're
what about the
5
Super
years
Mario
old.
Brothers Super Show?
Well, I like that show for a different reason. Nowadays. But I think
Go
one of the ways
on.
that's a big element of TV shows nowadays, like the really popular like serial shows, is surprise, like
Big
killing
plot
main
twist.
characters off or like throwing in huge plot twists. And I'm not sure you would be able to do that kind of thing in the old format and get away with it. I'm not sure. But
Another great thing about like the modern age of television, at least the things that are still good, like I'll just give the best example, South Park. It's consistently great satire every week. And that actually comes down to the fact that information sharing has become so much better.
Yeah.
So they're able to just take whatever's going on in the world and immediately crank out an episode.
Right.
And it's smart and it's witty and it's consistent funny, which
Yeah.
couldn't have happened earlier because, like with the way animation used to work, like you couldn't be exactly current without using a whole team of people from Korea. You know what I'm saying? And like it could take up to a year to make an episode of a show because of all the separate animation frames. But the way stuff works now, you can just stay so current with it. And it's a wonder to me that more people haven't like looked at South Park and gone, gee, you can do it right. But instead they're just like, I've got another dumb idea. Let's crank that out and see what happens. Not to take away from the dramas, because I watched Mad Men up till the point where I was just like, all right, I think I get it.
You gotta watch the finale.
Yeah, there's definitely like more of a sense that like anything is possible. Like, and someone could have like a crazy idea about something and just like throw it up and see what happens. But like I said, it can I've seen it kind of go both ways where just too much like viewer involvement listen.
What do you think, Seth?
Too much viewer involvement. I'm thinking we're on the right track because, again, you start seeing this type of weird thing with, I'm going to throw it back to YouTube, where you have that user
Right.
control. And
If
that's
you read
where
the comments.
Yeah, if you read the comments. But again, you half the time you see like the people who are producing the videos just for YouTube reading the comments and going back and going, okay, I'll fix this for you. And then,
or just
managing
getting
it.
really depressed.
Or, just going back and saying, no, here's the proverbial middle finger. I'm not going to deal with you whatsoever. I mean,
well,
it's that style of,
there's like a
information
tipping
sharing.
point in it, though, because like you're always going to have people that leave you just awful, hateful comments.
Oh, of course.
But once you find something that really works and it gets people's attention, you still pay some attention to what they're saying, but a lot of it you have to ignore because I'm already winning.
Yep.
There's no point in going back.
Well,
now.
that's where you look at how many people they have subscribed to them. Where you
Exactly.
say, I have 1 million people saying, hey, I'm doing a good job. And I have one jackass troll out there going, hey, you suck, man. You should go jump off a bridge. And it's like, where do these people get the whole comment of you should go jump off a bridge? I'd like to know where these bridges are we should be jumping off of.
Well, so Seth, we're talking about this change in culture. Well, do you agree that this has happened? First of all,
most definitely. There is definitely a change in culture. Just look at how many different shows have gone from going to a network to going to Netflix to going
Right.
to Amazon to going to a different format. Why? The cable companies aren't holding as much. I mean, but even in the
I think
same
people don't
sense-
want to even have cable anymore. I think
No.
that's what's feeding it.
What the biggest thing, if the cable companies really would want to stay alive, is the easiest thing to do is don't package the deals with all the okay, you have now a package deal, you get HBO,
Right.
or FX or
Well, it's built
whatever.
into the business models of these content producers. Because there's only really 5 companies that own all of the stations on TV,
Oh, yeah.
so they want to sell you as much of these other stations that they make.
But if you say, here, pick 20 channels out of these 20 channels, pick whichever one
but
you
there
want.
are stations that people aren't going to want to watch.
Of course.
Like who the fuck wants to watch Destination America?
I don't know. That's
Excuse me, sir.
I mean, well, and in the same light, we're a bunch of guys who wants to have QVC on their network. I mean,
I used to
it's-
watch The Knife Show.
I mean, it's stuff like that. I mean, it's a different era where you don't necessarily, you do have, but in the same light, you still have like the bigger networks still trying to produce shows too. So it's not like they're trying to like horribly fail. I mean, Gotham, for example, Arrow, those are
Trying.
yeah, but those are actually succeeding in a at least in the people I'm talking with. They're going, hey, have you watched a new episode of?
Yeah, well, that's because they found a niche demographic. You
Yeah.
know, they're like not comics, but comic inspired things have become more and more mainstream, and they're like, holy crap, we got to jump on this bandwagon. But I think what you have to do, at least as far as the entertainment industry and the way it's always worked, is you look at what the youth cares about. And right now, there's a reason we're doing a YouTube show. It's because like the youngest demographic, the people that are going to be adults in the next 10 years, freaking love YouTube. They're on it all the time. They're watching things all the way from Let's Plays just down to, cat videos. And that's where entertainment's going. There's a reason Daniel Tosh still has a job.
Yeah. Well, a reason Google bought it too.
Yeah.
But to pan out from even the TV subject, Seth, would you say that there has been a cultural transformation in comic books too? Because you manage a comic book store, so I'm curious if you'd say something
surprisingly,
similar.
not
has
so
happened.
much as you want to think.
Okay.
Where I've had people come in and go, "Hey, are comic books dead?" I mean, comic books are never going to die.
Well, not as a medium,
Oh,
I guess, but
no, but just as
like the storytelling, I
the
guess.
storytelling. It depends. I mean,
So
well,
yes, it is
you know,
first.
you have my face go into like a complete like weird out. Yeah, I don't know where I should be going with this. Is the storytelling still telling good stories? Yes. Is it telling the story you want to hear? Maybe not.
Okay.
For the demographics of people they're going after, the stories are still good. If you're looking for like the awe-inspiring news stories, that's where you have to start hunting down the independent companies. That's where you
Okay.
start getting like The Walking
Yeah.
Dead.
That's true.
Well, I throw that in there only because it is as big of a phenomenon.
Yeah,
as
it became a
is.
thing.
It seems like graphic novels are on the rise too. A little
Yeah.
bit.
They are. But there's still a demographic of people who love the touch and feel of comic books. I mean, hell, you can get comic books online.
Yep.
People can't read comic books online. Like physically, they get nauseous when they're reading comic books
Right.
online. So
Yeah, I've done a lot of manga online.
Yeah.
and, I mean, it's good for something like, say, you don't know if you're going to like it. So you go on there and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, all right, I found it for free. You start reading it. If you do like it, then maybe you want to buy it to support them. So you get more.
Right.
Which that's one really good thing about it. But yeah, I agree. Like I like to have my well, I've been getting more trade paperbacks over like the last 10 years or so. And it's cool because you can just get a huge story arc all in one place, which to me makes it more valuable than sitting around waiting.
Or trying to collect all these different books.
Yeah,
Here's a
which
question for
I used to
you.
do that when I was young.
ooh, I got a question from Chrispy. This is good.
What is Superman doing nowadays? That might be a good indicator for.
Well, so I used to be a big Superman fan, right? That was like the comic book that I really got into when I was a kid. And they had really great stories back in the day where like the death of Superman was a big thing and the reign of Superman and I don't know, like the Fall of Metropolis. I don't know if you ever read that story arc. But there were lots of interesting story arcs back then. And then I stopped reading comic books during high school, right after high school, because they started getting into like these big universal plots of what's happening to the DC universe and Infinite Crisis and what was the other one after that? Like the
well,
New
you had
52
Identity
or whatever.
Crisis, Infinite Crisis.
They keep
on
shaking
building.
up the whole DC
I liked
universe.
Flashpoint. I thought it was
Flashpoint
cool.
was an interesting idea. I mean, that brings up the whole New 52 idea. I mean, where you deal with 52 weeks in a year, and then you bring that into every comic book, or every week you're getting a comic book. It gets expensive really quickly. I'm going to tell you that. They tried to make it nice for you. It's going to be a $2.99 book versus a $3.99 book, but even then,
Where could I go if I wanted to get those?
your local comic book store, and I always go with your local comic book store, not necessarily just my comic book store, because it's just nice to go that route.
But all right, let's get back to Steve's question though. So what's going on with Superman? Or Crispy's question.
Yeah, Crispy's question of what's going on with Superman. I hate to disappoint you, Crispy. I have no idea what's going on with Superman.
Perfect.
Basically, they have reshaped the DC universe in such a way. That's why when he asked me, so how comics doing nowadays? It's where you get that dumb smirk on my face, and I can go, I really honestly don't know. Because
you've only been reading Power Girl.
Yes, their tits just keep getting bigger. I can't stop looking at them. No.
Well, I guess that counts as a trend that's happening.
No, they've ended up relaunching their whole universe. They've relaunched it once already, and that was the whole New 52.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Where
I know about that.
Where you've taken all the characters that you've had 75 years of continuity behind and say, fuck it, we're making a new one.
Oh, you know what they did with Superman? It's really disappointing. They took him from being like the Boy Scout to they were like, all right, we're going to make an exemplification of everything that is jock. And that's what Superman is now. That's what they started doing to him.
Oh, is that a recent?
Yeah.
The last like 8 years or so.
Recently, definitely recently.
And it's really funny. They were like, okay, so he used to be like mild-mannered, really nice guy, but the new one, he's like, oh, I'm all powerful and I know it and I'm going to flex that muscle all the time.
Is he kind of a goofball at the same time? Like sort of a frat boyish kind of?
To a degree. It's even funnier. They were like, you know what, Superman, Wonder Woman,
yeah,
power couple.
get it on.
That
Get it
has to
on,
happen.
man.
I'm surprised
we have nerd rage going on here.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened yet.
No, it has.
did it.
There's been a comic book. They've had a love relationship. Lois Lane? No. We're going Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Is Lois Lane still in the comics?
Yes, it's a creepy relationship. Let me tell you, it's just one of those random creepy relationships.
Why?
Go on.
That's as far as I'm going with it. You have to read the comic book if I'm going to sell you something.
Where can
That's-
I get that comic book?
Your local comic book store. AJ is still in town, so you can still visit me
Is
there.
that local for him anymore?
no, it's
What's
not
a comic
local.
book store out your way, Chris?
I don't
Yeah.
know. Probably something in.
I think they have comics at Wild Bill's.
Well,
Might be like
yeah.
vintage ones.
Yeah.
Probably have some current
Middletown?
stuff.
Uh,
Yeah, what's out in Middletown? Portland area. so-
Yeah, Portland, Middletown. There's one.
I don't know, man. I would go down to Sarge's.
Yeah, there's
It's
Sarge's.
It's a bit of a hike, but yeah.
How far is Manchester from him? 'Cause
Well, folks, relatively local comic shop.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, what about Cromwell? Is there anything out there?
There's probably something in Wallingford along.
Yeah,
Route
no,
5.
that would be your next best.
Up in Weathersfield, there's Omni.
Yep, there's Omni Comics.
that's-
There's the
Oh,
Eye
it
Opener
still
in
exists.
Hartford. That's another interesting store.
Mm.
And that's the weird thing about comic book stores is we're all in competition with each other, but none of them are close enough to actually be physically in competition with one another.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot of like anything collectible, you end up like that. I remember hearing about like the magic card stores and how they were just like at each other's throats, but like it's
Yeah,
such
but-
a niche market.
Yeah, it's
again.
it's a niche market, and you're so far away from the next one. It's like,
Yeah.
we had a card store down the street from us, and we just said, you know what, keep doing your cards. We'll keep doing our comics. We're just gonna
They
call
were
it a
selling
day."
comics there, though.
They
Yeah.
did, but
least
they
A
didn't
long
sell.
time ago.
Yeah, they didn't sell a whole lot of them either.
Well,
They
were
ran
selling,
them out of business though. There's a florist shop there now, I believe.
Actually, no,
it's a dog
no,
bakery?
it's a dog bakery.
Yeah.
now.
Oh, a dog bakery.
A
of
dog
course.
bakery.
You can't go wrong with baking your dog some biscuits.
Hey, you know what? Let's stop giving them free advertising.
I don't know. I think they might need it though.
As long as I get some free dog cookies.
And they're human safe. Human safe.
Great.
Oh God.
Gluten free.
But so from my perspective, like when I'm thinking about all these things of like culture that I enjoyed when I was a kid in the 90s, like, The Simpsons or sitcoms like Seinfeld or, other cartoons, I guess, like Beavis and Butthead or Ren and Stimpy. And, comic books. And then also, music from the 90s wasn't necessarily great, but it was a lot better than today.
Just like any other time, there was great stuff, and then there was just new stuff.
Yep.
you
So
know?
do you think it's just nostalgia or do you think it was objectively better? I think it was objectively better and society has just devolved for some reason.
Well, how do you think the people who grew up in the '80s feel about the '90s? It was probably the same thing. It's
Well,
probably
my dad is a big fan of 80s music and he hates 90s music, but he says that movies in the 90s were a lot better, which I don't think you can dispute if you look at the movies that came out in the 1990s.
Yeah. Well, to a degree, like just like any other time, there's
What's
good,
going on
there's
out
bad.
there?
When
Speaking of
birds
movies.
attack.
Yeah.
I mean, '90s was the era of the like the kids on a sports team movie or the kids go to camp
yeah.
movie.
Kids movies, I guess, but I guess I'm thinking of like The Matrix or American
Yeah.
Beauty or
So-
Fight Club or just
So the tail end of the '90s,
Hey, the Matrix
really.
was 2000.
Yeah, I was gonna
No,
have
it
to
was
say
99.
you're more apt.
It was
going
1999.
With,
Go on.
Pulp Fiction.
yeah,
That's,
Oh,
a,
well,
that's,
yeah,
a solid,
Fiction.
that's a solid '90s
Reservoir
movie.
Dogs.
Speaking
Yeah.
of Tarantino.
Yeah, no,
Seth.
I know. If we're gonna make fun of me, we might.
Oh,
as well
this is
use
not
it.
making fun. I'm just saying, how do you feel about the fact that you and Tarantino in a room would be like looking in a mirror?
Yeah, I know. This is horribly hilarious. No, so far, I was even talking with Steve earlier. The other Steve, not the host Steve.
Producer Steve.
Producer Steve. Thank you, Producer Steve, for nodding. About this whole horrible thing. I'm now.
Oh, what's horrible?
No.
about it?
I'm now Quentin Tarantino, Indiana Jones. Freddy Krueger was yesterday's monologue. And some random guy in a band that I wasn't really paying attention to from the guy in the liquor store.
What's the band?
I don't know. I don't know the singer or the band name. Otherwise, I would have told you.
All right, so you look like
But
a person.
I look like just about everyone you'd ever meet. Whether I'm stealing your soul in the demon or in the dream world or saving you from Nazis.
I'll
you
never.
know.
I'll never see anybody else as looking like Freddy Krueger quite as much as my own father. It terrifies me.
It does, actually. He does make a better Freddy Krueger.
Does he
than
have
me.
like the finger?
He used to do, for Halloween he would do it, but no, he and Robert Englund are
Yeah.
very similar looking.
Geddy Lee also kind of has the same face.
Yeah, it's close.
Indiana Jones, though, huh?
Oh,
Yeah,
it's the
just 'cause
hat.
the hat.
It's
Okay.
the hat. That's the same thing with the Freddy Krueger. I wore a sweater, and they said, "Oh, you're Freddy Krueger," and it's like, where do you guys come up with this?
Yeah, those are goofy,
Yeah.
but you and a young Tarantino,
no,
it's
no.
very similar.
It's very scary.
And even Quentin Tarantino kind of goes along with what I'm saying here. Like, I think the Kill Bill movies were way less good than as were Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction, and now like the new shit he comes out with, like,
Jackie
Inglourious.
Brown.
Even Inglourious Bastards, I thought that wasn't really a good movie.
He's got his hits and misses.
There
Like,
were scenes in that movie where I was like, all right, that's great. You know,
Yeah.
it developed well. Like this scene in the bar where it goes from them just having a good time to, everybody getting killed.
Yeah.
And then the Mexican standoff scene. That was really cool. I like that. But yeah, overall, like you could have cut half of that movie out and still had something.
Right. I guess what I'm trying to get at the heart of this is it seems to me like something happened to culture. And even to turn it back, like you were saying, like if you look at a lot of music that I really do like is like 1970s music, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Rush, Yes, Genesis. And then you move into the 80s and like all of those bands became shitty, like every single one, or they stopped existing.
Well,
so
I'd like to bring up a valid point. A lot of those bands were probably doing a lot of drugs during the time that they were.
do you think they just stopped doing drugs?
And either they stopped doing drugs or it was going to kill them.
Okay.
I mean,
And they started doing
Well,
different drugs.
and they started doing different drugs. There's the other thing.
You know, that kind of looks like Steve Howe on the opposite wall.
Brains.
Oh, Skeletor, keep bringing us those sweet licks.
Yeah, fucking Asia.
The only reason I liked seeing Asia was Steve Howe. Otherwise, it was a complete waste of time.
I'd like to make a monologue on stuff that, is relative to what we're talking about, is just the whole idea of political correctness that has come up in our era more than anything else. I mean,
So you think that's hinders?
just something to do with it. I mean, we're forced to be politically correct.
Well,
so-
you know why I would agree with you is because I think of professional wrestling. Because in the late 1990s, professional wrestling got very interesting when they kind of just threw the book out the window. Like, all right, we're just going to do whatever crazy shit we want to do. So you had like this weird, like the Ministry with the Undertaker. You had Stone Cold Steve Austin. You had The Rock cutting those really interesting promos. Mick Foley and his whole weird shtick that he did. Degeneration X. Like there was all this really cool cutting edge stuff. And then over time, Linda McMahon decided that she wanted to run for political office. So then they just got rid of all that and toned it back and kind of became cartoonish like it was in the mid 90s, with John Cena and Hornswoggle. You know who he is?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar
Yeah,
with Hornswoggle,
no.
but I feel as
Hornswoggle-
though I've been Hornswoggled.
Hornswoggle is a little person who
Nice.
plays the part of a leprechaun. Do you remember Fit Finley?
You know what? No, I have seen Hornswoggle. You just had to say the little person leprechaun thing and made a little connection there.
He came out originally with Fit Finley, like he was Fit Finley's leprechaun.
Go figure.
And then it came out that he was the bastard son of Vince McMahon.
Oh my god.
Oh, God.
See, well,
And
that's
then
kind of
his heart
still
blew.
fun though.
Yeah.
Like I don't
Yeah.
mind that.
No,
That's,
that was like the tail end of that non-politically correct wrestling era. And then
see
like
how
2008
stupid we can get.
or so, I'd say, is when it kind of, they toned it back. That's when she decided she wanted to run for office.
Well, yeah.
So I think the political correctness, it can hinder creativity, definitely.
Definitely.
Once people start censoring themselves. then-
Oh, yeah. I mean, once you start going, I can't step on anybody's toes. It's no. Please step on more people's toes.
Well,
Why?
that's-
It's funny.
Where entertainment is supposed to go. They're supposed to push the boundaries. Like that's why all writers hate censorship.
Right.
And like a cool thing about the 90s, they were like, all right, part of culture is stupid. Like there's a huge amount of it that's just like we're spewing crap basically, but they embraced it and
Right.
it made a lot of really cool stuff. Like things.
Well,
where
that was like the mantra of the 90s was pushing the envelope.
Yeah, well, and I just thought it was great how there were these things that, like, at face value were just idiotic. But then if you were to really sit and, like, look at what they're saying, there was something brilliant there.
Right.
And, yeah, that's definitely gone when you start saying, like, no, you can't do this, you can't
Well, it's like
do that.
satirical too, like Beavis and Butthead. Like
Yeah.
it's about these two idiots, but it's also like making a social commentary on like
Yeah.
this is the
This is
society we
what's-
live in now.
That's what's happening to our youth. They're
Yeah.
just sitting around rotting their brains with television.
Well, MTV more importantly.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can't forget the MTV. And I keep on interrupting Chris because I can see him with the thought. And that's why
Leaning towards the
I
microphone.
keep leaning toward the
Nope.
mic.
Go back.
Nope.
It's been happening for 25 minutes.
I know, it's been great, isn't it?
Where's
Basically, we're running off of one mic. We've been holding hands the entire time.
Well, I guess we're at a time.
Once Rob Fredette buys us another mic.
Yeah.
Hands and thighs. Hands and thighs.
Well, what I see is something a little bit different going on. I think
What's that?
I think there is that you see on the surface there is more of people who want to be politically correct or who want to be, want to keep things, safe for like a homogenous. Am I getting it?
Why?
A group, but that's because that there is this undercurrents of free flowing information that's avenues like the internet has made possible, where it's even more like you could find anything way more than in the 90s. Like it's not even comparable.
Right.
And so these new channels are opening up in terms of information and the kind of contents that you can make and share with other people. And what is going on the surface is a reaction, I think, to that. If not directly, then indirectly. The sense
You're saying that the flow of information is causing a sensitivity which causes political correctness?
yeah, there's a kind of response going on to it. There's a sense that the world is coming apart. It's becoming fragmented because we have, so much information at our disposal, and we can find, we can fight for any cause, and there's like this sort of this influx of like.
Yeah, but I think the problem is when you try to silence someone else and stop what they're saying. Like there was a big controversy recently where Jerry Seinfeld was saying that he can't play colleges anymore. I think Chris Rock agreed with him because there's such pressure to be politically correct and sensitive and not hurt anybody's feelings, and he can't do shows there anymore.
Yeah,
and that's
on,
really
like, a
an
public-
indictment of our generation more than anything. It's us that are causing the problem, I think.
on a public platform, but like beneath all of that, there's like this huge network where you can, if you can very easily find like-minded people. So there's almost like this sort of influx of like almost like a tribalism where, and this kind of plays into, I remember last time we were on the show that I heard about, we were talking about, I just lost my train of thought. It's going to take a long time to get back. We're talking about how, online interaction causes people to get into fights with each other more because we become like sort of talking heads.
Oh, you feel like you can say
Right.
whatever
our
you
points.
want.
Well, yeah.
Well, people
but it's-
become like caricatures themselves. We were thinking about two people who fight on Facebook a lot, and I was trying to get them to meet.
Oh, who could these people be?
I was
feeling.
thinking
I
in a
know.
more. I was thinking in a more general
The
sense.
fight on Facebook. I even don't know who you're talking about.
No, never.
But
Yeah.
that sense of categoricalness or separateness or fragmentation isn't just in like seeing each other. It's in like seeing ourselves too. Like these people are the reason that the world is the way it is, or these people are the problem.
You can probably close those blinds.
Isn't it strange, don't you think, though? I don't want to get you off your topic, but
Okay.
like the beauty of the internet, that it's supposed to be a way to like unify everybody, but what you're saying is really true. Like once we all have access to each other, it really just kind of brings out our differences more. And instead of celebrating them, we just continue to segregate and segregate until it becomes this big pissing match, basically, and that's
Yeah, I mean, that's basically, I would say, the entire crux of the crisis of the information age is.
But again, I think the problem is when you have groups of people saying that artists can't say things, like you're not allowed to say that. Like I was watching the Jimmy Kimmel show the other day, and I was what's the guy's name? Just forgot his name. Don Rickles was on the show, and he was, saying like all these racially insensitive things, and I was shocked that he was allowed to. I think he's just allowed to because he's so old and he gets a pass.
Yeah.
But like he's not even, I don't think he's really being racist per se. He's kind of he's being like satirical, like, can you believe people might think this kind of thing, or have this perspective, I think.
Well, with that idea, I'd like to bring up the whole Tom and Jerry issue.
Oh, the Tom and Jerry issue.
Now, Tom and Jerry issue is a fun issue because this has been brought to my attention recently, where they have recently done the remastered versions on DVD of Tom and Jerry, or in Blu-ray.
And they cut stuff out. Like,
no, they didn't cut stuff out, but they added a warning this show is racist, so watch out. I mean, they did a better job of explaining it than I did, but then again, that's
it contains sensitive material.
But to cut it out completely would do the people who got, who were, being targeted by this racism no justice. And to cut it out completely would also, in the same light, not show how racist we were as a culture at the time.
Right.
I mean, it's just one of those things that, hey, guess what? You got to accept it. I mean,
you have to address it at least.
Yeah. Well, you have to address it a little bit. Where back in previous years, I think they released this in like when the DVDs originally came out, and that was the same problem, except they changed the DVDs. They went so far as to just like change the characters entirely and just like computer generated, throw whatever politically correct woman in there that they wanted.
Right.
Versus
they should have just dropped anything with racism and just used the Tom and Jerry episodes that were animated in Eastern Europe that didn't even have voice acting, and it was just a bunch of sound effects, and then nobody could be offended.
That would work. That would make a lot more sense, Brandon.
I'm just kidding.
But to get back to the whole 90s culture thing, it seems like the driving force in the 90s was to push the envelope, was to kind of see what people get away with, see...
That's why everything had an X.
Yeah, right.
Nope.
Extreme.
Insert.
But it made people feel uncomfortable in a lot of ways, and now it seems like there's a backlash against that, where everyone wants to feel comfortable and you can't be made to feel uncomfortable.
I have a little cousin. All right, she's I believe 19 years old, and she appears to me to be basically a little old woman because of exactly what you're saying. It's just like this need, like, no, I want things to be just so. And if they're not, I'm not really going to get upset, but I'm going to go hide.
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
Yeah, and that, that whole idea is like ridiculous when you come to like, even like dealing with somebody from a completely different generation, dealing with a lot of the cashiers who are 19 years old at max, and you're just laughing at them going, this is like normal conversation topics. This isn't being, I'm not sexually harassing you or anything. I'm just being normal.
Yeah, just talking about my chin like
that. This chin, I'll tell you, it just looks phallic. Don't.
It's been places, let me tell you.
Yeah, it's been the people, let me tell you.
If your chin had a voice, what would it be?
We have often speculated on this.
This is a good speculation topic because I don't know, because the gambit of characters I could be ranges
not
from
you.
Harrison Ford to...
not you, sir. Not
Quentin
you. I'm not
Tarantino.
asking about you. I want to know.
No.
That chin.
As a result, the chin has some, shoes to fill, and I'm not sure what it would be.
Do you think it would be like a brash, dangerous sort of voice, or a little bit more puling?
I imagine the chin.
Hey, that's the mic.
I imagine that the chin is a very posh and dignified kind of character myself.
Like a
whenever
yes.
I would envision it speaking or being prehensile.
So like
I'd like to say it's Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, I always thought it'd be like high pitched.
Yeah, it would be the, and then you just like go, what the hell? I mean,
You know, when I realized you had a good sense of humor, Seth, was in Mr. Duguay's class when it was me, you, and Papa PJ.
oh, I was waiting for this to come up. Papa PJ, I was expecting you to actually invite him to one of these podcasts.
I haven't talked to him in a couple years.
He's got a kid now.
Obviously.
You know,
I
obviously.
think he might have two.
He might have two, and I
don't know,
just
maybe
haven't
I'm
seen
wrong.
Let us know in
I
the
think it's
comments,
just the
PJ.
accent.
Yeah,
please.
PJ, please let
Like,
us
comment,
know.
and subscribe. Like,
Yeah,
comment,
we'd appreciate this because I honestly, he came into the comic book store. He was buying comic books.
Well, he lives right there, doesn't he?
I know he lives right there, so it was something for him to do. And again, I like PJ. So, and you know, I never got to see him half the time. And when I did, it was less like a little bit socially awkward.
we
But
need
again,
to address this though.
The fun, you know, we had a Mr. Duguay's class.
Well, one time specifically I was going to bring up is when I made you a chin bra once. I took some paper clips and some tissues, and I like taped the tissues around the paper clips, and then you actually put it on, and you wore it on your chin.
You know, I don't have any recollection of this, but I'm pretty sure it's true.
Deny.
I believe it. I made several movies for English classes with Seth, and he would totally do something like that.
I remember one of those movies, Chrispy. It was a very
Those were fun times. Yeah,
those were fun times. In Dave Fascarelli's backlot.
we were a power trio.
I believe one of those movies had me involved with it, and I think it was a caricature similar to what Steve had, and it was the old Looney Tunes style of, you know, duck season, rabbit season, duck season, rabbit season, Seth season, and just me with my chin, and 5 seconds cut, and we were done, and it was just that amusing fact.
I found my senior scrapbook that we had to make, and you know, I didn't try very hard on it or
No.
whatever. The last page, though, well, you got a very special place in it, Chrispy, actually, because that was the year we saw Yes.
Oh,
And
When Paul didn't see us.
yeah, unfortunately, but and I actually wrote that on the page.
Did
Like
you?
my best friend Paul got screwed out of this because he was like expelled or suspended or whatever. But thanks to Shane. But no, like I put the picture of you on the same page as like all the Yes stuff because like if it weren't for you, I never likely would have listened to most of them. So that was a big thank you to you. But the last page was just a picture of Seth with like a silly face, just like a little like oh, and it just said Seth. Enough said.
Oh, it's always good to know I'm wanted in your senior scrapbook. You didn't make it into mine, though.
I'm using that binder for my science class now.
Oh, good. I'm glad to see the binder is getting used.
When I actually was digging these comic strips up today, I was like tearing through what were the pages of my senior scrapbook.
Yeah.
All these photographs scotch taped onto these pieces of paper.
Yep. Mine were stapled.
mine was
Ooh,
awful. It was just I took leaflets out of a photo album binder. You know, they had like the plastic that you just kind of fold over.
You didn't even do anything with them? Like I wrote like captions and stuff.
I
on
wrote
them.
like a couple things, but it was like, and Spencer was grading it too. So you know, we have
Oh,
like
man.
kind of a weird rivalry. I keep on thinking I'm seeing him everywhere, but
Were you guys?
always off.
Jesus.
I have seen him a couple times.
Are
He,
you sure?
He came into Radio Shack once and some other place too. But I don't know. I'm sure if you were working in Colchester when you saw him, was it when you were working in Colchester?
Yeah, it was.
It was probably.
It probably was him.
Okay.
But
It would make sense. I used to see Mr. Norman during my brief stint in fast food.
You know who I have seen a couple times is Mr. Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah, Williams
That asshole.
definitely.
Fuck
goes
you,
around.
Williams.
Yeah.
I saw him at
I was waiting
Starbucks
for that.
You know, I'm glad everyone has the same view of Mr. Williams. And yes, I'm yelling into the mic. It's fun.
I never had him. So I
No,
really
you don't
one.
have him, but you know, I had him
Certainly
with
not now.
Vlad. Oh, of course.
I just
yeah,
talked to Vlad the other day.
Yeah.
Or
How's he doing?
chatted with him.
Oh, he's crazy.
I don't know.
Yeah, nobody knows. Vlad's building a dam,
He
man.
speaks in like these, or he types, I guess I should say, in like these weird kind of riddles.
Yes, he does. He still does that.
So I'm not quite sure.
You know,
how to-
I'll take a step back. I actually did talk to him about probably before the beginning of summer, and he is building a dam, mind you.
Okay. He
out
told
in
me he was
Vermont.
working on some project,
Yeah,
but he wouldn't give me any details.
No, you don't know. You don't ask about his projects.
It's a serious
Yeah.
project.
You'll get Istvan Stark involved, and yeah.
Only if he's really drunk.
Where does he live? What does he do?
He lives in like the middle of Vermont.
Yeah, he's in
Yeah.
Vermont. He's going to college right now. in
Architecture,
Norwich.
right?
It won't
Yep,
tell you
architecture.
what it's for, of course.
No, architecture. He's building a dam.
Ah,
Which should be civil engineering, but
Yeah, well, you know, again, you have to go with something.
Yeah.
Undergrad in probably engineering. So there's your
if you're
civil
gonna
engineering.
do stuff like building a dam, you
But
need it.
again, he had the same outlook as all of us in college. I'm not sure if you guys did, but I definitely did with Chrispy.
You guys went to college together?
Yeah, we did. We went to Three Rivers together.
that's true. We did. We were there. For a
I
couple years, huh?
carpooled with this person.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to go to my first
yeah.
couple of years of college if it weren't for you.
Did you
Yeah.
have classes together?
No,
No, we didn't.
no. I think we might have had one, if any, but that
No,
might
we had
be-
like a break period.
Yeah, we
together.
had a break period together, and yeah, that's right. We hung out with Marty Powell.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me stories about
and
stuff you'd say
you
at
would
college.
get the most ridiculous stories out of that.
That's funny because Marty also went to MCC.
Really?
Yeah, which
Gets
makes
around.
no sense.
Uh,
Do you still have that car that we were using?
No,
oh God,
The
no.
one
no,
near the-
no.
No.
My car history, just so you know, since we are bringing up old high school history, and one of the nicknames I did have in high school was Crash.
I never called you Crash.
Nobody called me Crash except Vlad Stawicki, and if we brought him up, he gets to
Hey,
the.
yo, Crash, what's up?
Yeah, hey, Crash, what are you doing?
What's going on, Crash
yeah.
Who the fuck are you
Bandicoot?
talking to?
Yeah, no, you know, out of all my nicknames, nobody is really.
How many nicknames
What
do you
nickname?
have?
I don't remember ever calling you anything but
No,
Seth.
no. I mean,
I was actually thinking about
Ever.
today, like, because I was going to introduce you all as a nickname, like Brandle, Chrispy, and Seth.
and Seth. No, you could have introduced me as
Crash.
Scoochie. Scoochie was one. Even,
Scoochie.
even
Yeah.
the producer knew about Scoochie.
Scooch.
But no, I think my parents must have been really like just driving for the humor factor with me because
Were they thinking of Egyptian
Because of the
gods?
middle name?
yeah, the middle name.
Oh,
the
yeah.
middle name. You
Oh, yeah.
you've had this.
What's your middle
introduction.
name?
It's Michael. But to my friends, I'm Seth Mike Coochie.
That's funny.
to like 3 or 4 people.
I don't actually think anybody could do that with a straight face.
But it's
again-
Coochie, it's Coochie with a K, though, so it's
Yeah.
different.
Oh, that makes
Yeah.
the sound different. So.
That's up there with why I can't join the Marines. Be Private Coochie. I don't think I could keep a straight face.
Hey, dude. But if you finally got up to Major,
Yeah,
you know,
Major
that'd be
Coochie.
something.
No, man.
Major Coochie.
That'd be pretty rad, actually.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna start using rad.
Hey,
Awesome.
come on. We're in the 90s now. We're in the 90s. We're in somebody's basement. Right
No,
now,
rad.
so-
Rad's a good. It's just a good. It's
Yeah.
like a buzzword.
Yeah.
Buzz is a good buzzword.
People
Um,
don't say radical, I say radical.
Radical.
That was another good Simpsons episode where everybody tries to be Bart Simpson. Like the motivational speaker comes to town and like Bart interrupts his thing. He brings up on stage and said, "Yes, you should all be trying to be like this boy."
Oh,
You
I
remember
was
that?
thinking of the episode where they were like
Yes,
in a
eat my
rivalry with
shorts.
Shelbyville, and Shelbyville stole the land.
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
that's another good one.
That was a fantastic episode.
and the
that
other
was
Millhouse.
that was a
Yeah.
contender. This is what it's like when doves cry.
Yeah, that was a pretty classic one too. Yeah, man, how the hell did they write that shit? I would love to have been there for like those writers meetings when they were
Mhm.
coming up with those jokes. They must have been so high.
I've always actually kind of wanted to like direct or write like a cartoon show.
I want to find somebody who can animate so that we could do voice work. But
Yeah.
it's hard to
I
find
really
people
only
to
have the one
animate.
I
voice,
see.
you know?
I do.
It's probably easier now with the computer.
I do a little bit
Do
of
you know anybody
animation.
that makes cartoons? Because I don't.
The
I
pro-
used to.
The problem being.
I mean the
Brandon-
ones that move.
Yeah, no. The problem being, Brandon, is the fact that I don't have the technology. It's just like how I can't be 2 places at once. I have not figured out how to.
Hey, Producer
use the
Steve.
technology.
You want to be a cartoonist?
No,
It's got a general head shake.
No.
A general but certain head shake.
Yeah. Oh, it got shifty.
No,
for,
no,
oh,
it got thumbs down
It plummeted.
See, that was one of the things I was gonna offer. Is
What about,
just,
like,
hey,
machinima?
Steve, do you wanna,
Like with that.
have something go on with the, nutmeg and the nutmeg title? But I couldn't come up with anything.
For a cartoon?
Yeah.
Well,
like just a
you can
little,
just
5-second
animate
thing.
this.
Yeah.
People do it with other YouTube shows.
No, I could do it with.
It's hard to
something.
animate like 3 hours of talking. Though,
Yeah.
Well,
you
you do
could have 4
snippets.
different nutmegs and like have little mouths on them that
Yeah.
move when each of us talk.
Well,
That would be way too complicated.
You-
I hate to say it. I like the Monty Python aspect, but
Yeah.
I'd get bored with
well,
it.
no, you don't do the whole show. You just take highlights and animate those.
Yeah.
No, the whole 2 hours.
Yeah, I
or
like
however
the
long
Andy
we go for.
Kaufman aspect.
It's
of it.
only an hour and 25 minutes so far. That's not so bad.
I think we're gonna push it to 2.
I mean, I figure if you were to do it traditionally, your hand might get tired, but you can do it.
Well, hey Steve, you still up for puppeteering these things? We can get the white kid now. And the turkey.
Yes, those are the days.
Yeah, we'll go back to middle school.
That was earlier than middle school. Steve, the producer here,
Yeah.
and Seth were some of my first friends when I first came to Colchester in like 94, 95. So it's been like 20 years. And Steve here was actually the one that christened me with the nickname Chrispy.
Really?
Because he noticed that my first name and the first initial of my last name, because there were other Chris's in the class, together made the adjective crispy. And it just kind of stuck from there.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
serendipitously, Steve and Seth were also involved in a puppeteering.
Oh, if he pulls out Georgie from the closet, I'm gonna be scared. All right, good lights.
Oh, he looks like he was. He was.
He looked like he jumped up quickly.
He
He
wa-
ran to the closet.
He was gambling
I've kept
toward the
him all
door as if
these
he had like a bright idea. But
I've kept him in
Kinda
a
turned
dark
down.
box.
also, this was around the time that Seth was involved in his soda business, Coochie Cola,
Oh god,
Oh,
that was
Coochie
another
Cola.
horrible thing.
which actually worked out quite well. But he was bought out by a private equity fund, if I'm not mistaken, in 1998.
If you want to think that, Chris, I still haven't.
You
seen
made
that.
soda?
Drink
No,
coochie.
we-
Startlingly refreshing.
It was called Coochie Cola, and it's on videotape somewhere. I think, isn't it?
I hope not. We endorsed the
Where
white
did those
kitten, if I
bubbles come
recall
from?
correctly.
Straight out Makuchi.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got our producer's nod of approval that this is a true story of.
It is true.
Can
Every
we,
word of it.
Can we start making ads?
We probably could. We still
Awesome.
have the old ads to like contend with, though.
So we just get like a soda stream, make something
Yeah.
that tastes awful, and there we go, Coochie Cola.
What's a good awful tasting soda that we could do? Maxi.
Moxie?
Moxie.
Moxie.
Well,
uh,
Maxie is
I
even
don't-
worse than Moxie.
I don't want to. Yeah. It's only served in pads.
That's weird. Oh, well, a drink's a drink.
Squeeze out the bubbles. Coochie Cola.
Oh.
So that was 5th grade.
Great.
So, Seth, 20 years. Any regrets?
a few, Chris.
Anything you don't regret.
Anything I don't regret. Yeah, again, me and Chris are sharing a mic, so I think we're pretty close even now.
I also
Quite
can't see
literally.
their hands. They
yeah,
are under
no,
the
we're
table.
having a good time tonight. How about you?
Ah,
Oh,
Crispy
man.
ruined the illusion.
Yeah,
What is a striking memory of something that we did together for you?
for me or with me?
Or at you.
For you
Or-
that we did together.
I mean, we still have got my favorite memory of the whole newspaper advertisement or comic strip rather was the fact that you had to get me to sign a consent form.
Did I?
Yeah, you did.
It's probably Mr. Anastasio probably had me do that.
Yeah, he did.
I don't
just
remember
because-
ever signing a
Yeah, no,
release.
no, only because my phallic chin was, so
Ah.
phallic and chin-like.
It's pro- Again, it's probably because I'm like making fun of a feature.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Wait, this is okay, right? Yeah.
yeah. No, go for it. I mean, it's
Totally.
fine. Yeah, and it was that thought of, should I say yes? Should I say no? What the fuck? Why not? It'll be funny. So
Embrace it.
yeah, and at
Embrace
least it's
the
not like
chin.
the bra you got me last year.
At least what?
At least it wasn't like the bra you got me the year before. Chin bra. From the
I don't think any of it was really mean-spirited.
No, it
maybe,
wasn't.
maybe it was from your
No.
perspective.
What's
we found a videotape that we had made after school. It was like me, Jack, Paul, I don't know, Rob, some other people. And we're going around the school, like just making fun of people and like giving them a hard time. Like,
Was that the Kelly Muty retirement?
no, it was something else. And like, we're just like walking around the school making fun of people. I don't remember, but we're such assholes. Like, I didn't think like we were that mean to people, but
Yep.
I guess we must have been. It makes me wonder too, like what people who like I only talked to a couple times, like what they must remember about me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's that asshole that said that one thing that one time.
Yeah, I think we were just like insouciant and had a lot of energy and just said, hey, we can do whatever we want.
That's
Kinda-
youth.
Yeah, that
that's
is
what
youth.
youth is all
Yeah.
about.
So I probably think that some people are assholes and they're not.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And there are some people that were just so saccharine sweet that probably on the inside wanted to kill every last one of us.
Well, I think people like put on facades and faces, much like that
or
that
chins.
speaking
even.
event that we had. Remember that time when the Christians came and the one guy was wearing chains and then he got like speared off of the
Was
chair?
that-
Do you guys remember this?
I do.
I
The
remember
Youth
that.
Action Council.
Wait,
Yeah.
was this the Swedish Fish event? Because I remember one time Brandon brought in Swedish Fish.
No, it
once.
was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was like a presentation.
There was
Oh.
there was the Youth Action Council thing, and then we had a Diversity Day, which I
I
got
skipped that day.
got a funny story for a Diversity Day. But no, there was a time when I brought candy. They were doing a mock car crash. and
Oh yeah.
I brought sweet tarts,
Okay.
and there were the ones where you got to rip open every package to get it 3 of them.
Oh, I hate those.
Right? It's a little annoying, but that's what I was going for. So I'm standing there. I'm like, all right, we're getting a free show, so I'm going to bring snacks. And yeah, I ended up getting in a little bit of trouble for that one. But no, Diversity Day was funny to me because after we got done with this whole thing about sensitivity, they brought us back to a classroom. And what they did was they partnered us up with just a random classmate
Don't
to
use
try
my
to-
last name.
to try to celebrate diversity. Now, I got stuck with the only other person in my class that was tall and blonde. And I looked at her and I said, gee, this seems diverse to me. They failed hard
That's
on
funny.
that one.
You know what I just saw the other yesterday was Angie Parkinson. I can use her name. Went to a Bernie Sanders rally
I was
yesterday.
gonna say, I bet that's where you guys.
Yeah. She is gung ho for Bernie Sanders. That's like the only thing she posts on Facebook is Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders.
I wonder why.
She likes Bernie Sanders.
I know, but like what specifically gets to her, you know?
I see a lot of random people show up at the Rite Aid
Oh yeah.
to come in and pick up the drugs.
Is Bernie Sanders one of them?
Bernie Sanders is not one of them. Angie Parkinson, not one of them.
Oh,
But of all the people,
that's cool.
Ivan Cleary. If you remember Ivan Cleary. is
Yep.
one of them.
Ivan Cleary. Who is that?
Now, Ivan Cleary, I love the kid. He lives down the street, actually, from here.
I like how he acts like he doesn't know me.
No, he doesn't know me either, because I had to go up to talk to him. So
He's like avoiding eye contact with you.
Well,
He'll
yeah,
literally just, like, look through
yeah,
you.
No, he'll look through you. But throughout high school, which is amazing to me, he was always at death's bed.
Death's door. Death's
No,
door.
death's bed. It was not death's door. We're going with the Marvel universe where you can actually, make love to death.
Oh God.
Uh,
I think that started with Neil Gaiman, actually.
Probably. But needless to say, he's doing well to, for the moments that we've talked with, because he's got a wife.
Yeah.
It's good. Good for him.
apartment, and I'm surprised.
I haven't seen him since high school. You know what?
I
I haven't seen.
haven't seen him.
Ivan is one of those people that we were just talking about. I felt like I was kind of an asshole to.
Yeah,
So if
probably.
you're listening to this,
Well,
although
were
I
you?
still have graphite in my arm from him when he stabbed me with a pencil.
Yeah,
there.
Yeah.
That's Ivan Cleary graphite.
well, I guess you're even then. But
Um,
It's pure
Steve,
carbon.
Steve,
Remember
all
that.
I have to say is I don't like salmon. The comments.
Yeah, what was the other one? He had like the
Squeezle squazzle?
Yeah, the squeezle squazzle.
I don't think he ever actually
there was
said that though.
there was also the I team in gym class where we pretended like we were a news reporting team and followed him around like pretending we had cameras and stuff.
It made sense at the time.
Yeah,
It did.
Eyewitness. Yeah.
But there was another thing too. He had a brace because he kept getting hurt.
No.
He had one that said like Exotech or something like that. Or
The
Like some
poor
fake
kid.
company.
All right, so we're in Boy Scouts together, and this is probably what you don't know. It goes ice.
It's a lot I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot you don't know and you don't want to know. He goes ice waterfall climbing. I don't know how this works. I didn't
I
go
do.
on the camp out.
pretty
climbing
cool.
up the ice.
Yeah, he's
That's
climbing
really. That
up
sounds
the
really
ice.
dangerous.
No, ice climbing's
it
pretty
sounds
cool.
really cool.
It can be
but
safer
really
than rock climbing.
dangerous at the same time, because again, he ended up breaking his other knee.
Yeah, he probably shouldn't have been doing it, but it
but-
can be really
yeah,
safe.
no, it can be really safe. But again, I asked him, like I asked Ben when he decided to light himself on fire.
That's
the dumb
that's
question.
a different
That's another.
story.
That's
Yeah.
another podcast for you people later.
I don't know if you want to interview Ben. I'm not sure how well it would go.
I don't think it'd go.
Yeah,
You filmed it.
you did.
Producer
Yeah,
Steve
Yeah,
has
yeah,
it.
he
on,
actually
on like
Oh.
just a cell phone, right?
Yeah.
And we never got the footage though. Like
We should put it on this podcast in the video
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Well, because there's a controversy with that. The Ben lighting his leg on fire.
I ended up
kicking
getting in
Jake.
trouble with Jake's mom because I'll tell you in a minute.
Because we don't know if the actual foot and him connected, and the only videotape is now missing.
Well, Steve has it, right?
No,
No, Jake might. Jake might have it.
might have it. If it wasn't recorded over for the christening,
There's
I don't know what they're christening, but
I lived with Shane for a while
Yeah.
in Glastonbury, and Jack and John Valencia too. But we had this video where Shane would get like blackout drunk every night and just do something ridiculous. Like he'd start doing push-ups when he's blackout drunk, or like just like 10 minutes of him just puking, or like falling down over and over again, just hitting his head on like rocks and
Dude.
all this shit.
I saw him black out one time, and he went into the kitchen and got a chunk of cheese and a big old knife and like no cutting board or anything. He just came like wandering back into the living room, and he was just gonna start cutting himself up some cheese. And Jack's just like, "Give me that, buddy. Like we don't want you hurting yourself."
But yeah, he made this videotape. First of all, the videotape, he used a video of his parents' vacation. So he just taped over that with his like drunken escapades. And then like we would watch it and laugh at him. So then he taped over that with just like video of the dogs running around the house. Like, just to tape over it.
Totally
Perfect
worth
cover-up.
it.
yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, he's a class act.
He's been on the show too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, twice
at
actually.
least.
And
But,
he did the radio
Perhaps
show
interested
too.
viewers could check out some of those videos in the
Yeah.
videos page.
In the
I
comment
I always
section.
said like
Shameless plugging.
if somebody's gonna have a reality TV show, it should be Shane. There should be a camera crew really following him around all day long.
I'm just worried that like he would then start to like play it up, and
Yeah.
like you'd have the normal like level of Shane, which is already sometimes very dangerous, and then like knowing he has an audience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm
just start
just-
smirking, squinting and smirking.
I just think he might not last through the season. That's what I'd be worried about.
So we need a video camera and a crazy enough video camera operator for this job.
That's not
Hey,
too
Steve,
hard. I've got an
are you-
iPhone.
Which actually just brought to mind greatest Simpsons moment ever is when Bart doesn't jump the gulch, but Homer tries, and then he falls down the cliff.
And
It's-
falls.
Wile E. Coyote
and
style?
falls.
That's the funniest Simpsons bit ever, I think.
And, just
And then
falls.
it happens again, right? Like the
Yeah, the
Yeah.
ambulance hits the tree, and then he goes. That is the funniest Simpsons bit ever, I think.
It was very well done, and like there was that sort of stuff where you got just like the needless repetition, and there's something with our generation where that kind of crap just resonates, because then like Family Guy ran with it.
Yeah.
Like the I've got a golden ticket moment where he trips, hurts his knee, and just goes. over and over.
Well, I
and
think
over.
Family Guy was just trying to see what they could get away with, but in The Simpsons, they were just like, because that kind of stuff didn't really happen a lot on TV back then.
Yeah.
So they were just like, okay, this is going to really surprise him when this happens
Definitely.
for a second time when he hits the ambulance.
Yeah, that was a thing of beauty. Like, they did. Yeah.
Well,
do you think like these guys when they're starting out writing, like, where do you think like their major inspirations come from? Because like I've been reading like a lot of short literature lately, and like it.
Did you read Araby yet?
No, I haven't had any need to, but
You did. It had to do perfectly with what you were talking about there.
But
James
again,
Joyce, Loss of Innocence.
I had to write something on epiphanies. Whatever, but. No, some of these guys, like their humor, you read it and you're just like automatically like, I feel like these guys were growing up like really into like Monty Python, and like that. I think a lot of like non sequitur humor could find like really strong base in what those guys were doing, like where it would just be something oddball left field out of nowhere and then you're laughing. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, are you saying that you think that a lot of people who are writing comedy today like took off from that kind of stuff that happens?
Well, I think maybe like the guys writing The Simpsons and like writing SNL in that era and stuff, like probably that's like where their inspiration was coming from. So do you think that like people creating like new stuff now are now like, it's going to be people in like our age demographic? Do you think like a lot of that stuff, they're just going to be like thinking back to when they were a kid and they're like, that gag from The Simpsons we were just talking about. And they're like,
well, the problem's going to be
that.
the people who are slightly younger than us who think that The Simpsons from the 2000s is indistinguishable from The Simpsons of the 90s, or that, I don't know. What's a shitty, like popular something from the 2000s?
How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, no.
I really dislike that show, not because I've seen it and disliked it, but because people compare me to the main character of that show all the time.
Doesn't that suck?
You have to share.
Yeah, now, Chris, now that we're sharing a mic again, you get compared to that. I get to compared to, you work at a comic book store. You must be like the other character on that. Which I don't even watch the show, so I
That's gotta suck being compared to a character on a show you don't even watch.
That I don't even
Which
know.
happened in The Simpsons too.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
The Max Power episode.
Oh, yeah.
But to
Simpsons
get back
did
to your question, Brandon, I think that those people, because I watched a lot of the Simpsons DVDs, by the way, are a really great package because they have full commentaries on every episode.
Yeah, those are always good. I got the Seinfeld ones. That was really
They only do like 2 or 3 in a set, though. And the Simpsons box sets, they do every episode commentary with the writers, the producers, and stuff.
That's awesome.
So you have insight. This is awesome. Go.
Well, I think, a lot of those people, especially back then in the early days of The Simpsons or the early seasons, were just they're very literate in terms of like contemporary culture. Like they watched a lot of movies. They're
constant references, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or just all kinds of shit.
And I think when they were writing for the show back when it was beginning, it wasn't like, what is a funny thing that, Bart Simpson in quotations would do. It was more like a situation like here.
What is funny?
We have a character. We need to come up with a funny situation with this character. He's a kid. He's kind of rebellious. So we need to think of stuff that we can do, different kinds of plot ideas. It was more of like, they weren't thinking about it in terms of like, quote, The Simpsons,
Yeah.
Right.
They were thinking about it in terms of like, we're writers, we have a craft here, and we're here on this project. We don't know really what's going to come out of it. We're just going to do our best.
Well, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, obviously they weren't their own trope at that point. It was just a show. It was just starting. But, everybody's influenced by something is all I'm saying. So like, you can look at a lot of humor as being derivative of things that already happened. Like originality, of course, happens.
Yeah.
But, like any joke that you have, just like any piece of music, you could be like, all right, well, it's sort of like this. Like it's its own funny, Just like a piece of music is like its own good, but it's like, but you can compare it really easily to this.
Yeah, well, that gets into interesting territory because it's funny. Being funny is sort of it's a craft. Like when you see good comedians or good comedy writers or good humorists, there's a sense about it like there's like they're not just like being funny in front of their friends. There's a technique to this that is getting something funny across.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was listening to an interesting interview with Louis C.K. where he talks about how some people, it's just something that some people have where they can, be funny for other people who they don't know. Like it's a certain way they see their experience and can translate it. That's not just a matter of being like, I'm a big kook. It's like a technique that you learn, I think. And some comedians have it, and some think that they are funny because they can get a laugh out of other people sometimes, but it's not the same thing as like
Dane Cook.
I don't really care for him.
I don't care for him either.
The thing about attacking Dane Cook is everybody loves to just like glomp onto that. It's like, all right, we hate Dane Cook, and I get it. Like, I'm not a big fan myself, but apparently he's a really pleasant guy. Like,
I'm sure the people that worked on Big Bang Theory or How I Met Your Mother are pleasant also.
Ooh, yeah. Now we're getting into dangerous territory. It's like we're being super judgmental.
Well,
Yeah.
no, not
It's,
necessarily being judgmental.
These are just people.
They are people after all, but what they're doing then goes back.
We
to
don't approve.
Well, it goes back to what we originally said is, we have that comfort level or that, the politically correctness. Hey, you're making fun of my demographic. We're a bunch of white guys.
Oh, I'm not saying we shouldn't.
What demographic do we have to make fun of?
I'm not saying we shouldn't. It's just good to have perspective.
It is.
There's
Yeah, but when you're trying to be funny, I mean, you can judge some.
Oh yeah,
on
and I
whether or
think
not they're
pull
having
no
fun.
punches.
I've tried
And
making,
Dane Cook is not funny, so fuck him.
One thing that I notice when I look at different comedians is even if I don't laugh at something, there's a part of me that goes, "Oh, that's funny." It's like there's a quality to it that's not just like the surprise of my laughter. Like, to use sort of an unfortunately topical figure like Bill Cosby, for example. Like when I hear his stand-up, I'm not laughing out loud, but his material I listen to and I think, "Oh, that's funny," because of the way, he's the material and the way he's presenting it and like the basic idea behind it. And there's an interesting documentary. It's not really a documentary. It's more of a taped conversation that maybe you guys have seen between like Jerry Seinfeld and Chris Rock and Louis C.K. and Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
Ricky Gervais, where they talk about sort of being comedians. And one thing that Jerry Seinfeld says is that there was a moment where he realized he came up with his first funny idea, which was it was like a roller coaster where people screamed in like Long Island where people screamed when the roller coaster was down on the loop and then they stopped when it was coming up out of the loop.
It is funny. But I've also heard Jerry Seinfeld say something that funny is funny. It's like objectively funny, but I wonder about that sometimes too.
There's things
because there's things that we're
translate.
talking about, but there's also like things from before our time that I've watched that I don't really think are funny. Like most comedy, I think from, I don't know, before the 60s, I guess, like I don't really get or think is funny. Like the Three Stooges and the Marx Brothers would be the exception, but like,
You can go way back.
Yeah.
Like the works of Aristophanes, like the original comedies, and like some of that stuff is always going to be funny. Like obviously, you gotta take a few things. Like there was the Birds, which was like it was about how they wanted to like wrest power from the gods, and it was really like a big political satire, and like that kind of stuff's always gonna be funny. But it might not be like the same kind of stuff that we're looking to for a laugh.
there was, I'm actually thinking there's a funny Shakespeare line where I think it's Henry V, where the French have this, it's like a duke or something, but he's called a dauphin.
Yeah.
And so there's this English guy like talking to his underling. He's like, "Please tell your eminent dolphin." I don't know. It's a funny line.
Well, yeah. I mean,
But I don't know. I'm thinking of like I've seen old Jack Lemmon movies and stuff. Jack Lemmon was a comic genius, but I saw one recently called like I don't forget what it is. It's Stuck on Second Street or something. But the movie is just not funny. But like I think it was a blockbuster hit at the time, and it's got like 4 stars and it's well regarded. But I think comedy might change over time too.
Well, it does because you don't have the same current events going on. I mean, you look at something that was funny in the 50s, and you look at now, they're going to be totally different because, well, I have my cell phone to solve this problem. I mean, that goes back to the old, I think it was Dave Fascarelli who said, I'm always prepared to be alone in the dark. He whipped out his cell phone and had a light on it, versus me, who whips out a lighter and lights it on fire and goes, so am I. I mean, the difference between the two is, well, if there's a gas leak, I'm going to explode. Where there's not, I'm not. But, it's so minuscule. Well, what are we really arguing about?
Nothing. That's
But what I'm trying to figure out, I guess, is comedy an objective thing where something either is funny or isn't, or is it a relative thing depending on what time you live in? Or is it both, maybe?
I think it's both.
I think
Yeah.
you can like funniness is like a quality that I recognize in people, like an
Yeah.
attribute of their character. Like even a person who gets laughs out of their friends or their company isn't necessarily funny, but something about me can like tell when like, oh, this person is funny. Like they have a
It's like a charisma or something,
Yeah.
right?
sort of along those lines.
Well, it's that energy of trying to, make you laugh, too. I mean,
Right.
and you know where that comes from?
I'm
At least in comedians.
Yeah, all right, where is that?
Misery.
True. Tragedy equals a good story. I mean, no matter
Yeah.
what,
A lot of writers are really
miserable characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of comedians. A lot of them, like Patton Oswalt, like he always jokes. He's like, "Oh, I'm always depressed, and I'm gonna kill myself." And-
Yeah, how much of a joke is that really, Patton? Pretty
Exactly.
close, pretty close.
All right, so here's my final question for tonight before we end. And I'd like to thank all of you for being on the show. It's been really great to have you all here.
Definitely been a pleasure. We'll go in reverse order. Chris, go.
Well,
What, is it being recorded?
Yeah.
but here's my final question for tonight. So we're talking about high school, and these comic strips I did, you guys, was 12 years ago. And, we've come a long way in 12 years. A lot of crazy shit's happened, at least to me, maybe not you guys. But I'm kind of curious, where would you like to see yourself 12 years from now? In 2027, what would you like your life to be like when you're 41 years old?
You want to take this, Brandon?
Oh no, you go ahead.
How about you, Seth?
I'll take this because this is the...
Or maybe not where you'd like to see
Yeah,
yourself.
no,
Where do you
See,
think you'll
this
be?
This is the usual fun question that I get asked by an alcoholic father. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? So now we're going 12 years.
I have
and- yeah,
heard
I'm
that
sure you
question.
have had that question asked, Brandon. Brandon used to live in my lake house.
Yeah,
And so
But he
as a
asked you
result,
to.
he would ask you.
we would
the
talk
most-
for hours.
My favorite story about Brandon and my father has to be him changing out the electric
Can I
box.
tell it?
You can
I
tell it.
All right, so it was very funny. We weren't. What we were doing was like right after I moved in. One day I had my girlfriend at the time over, and she went to use the shower, and there was nothing but cold water. And so I call up Mr. Cucci. I'm like, "Yo, no hot water, man." And he's like, "Oh, that is a problem."
That
So-
is a very big problem. I'll have to take care of it right away.
Yeah,
I'll
so
play
he
Mr. Coochie.
Comes rushing down to the house, Russian. He comes rushing down to the house, waka waka. And we're down by the hot water heater, and we went and turned the power off, and we have to change out the heating element in the hot water heater, and when we do it, we end up standing in a pool of water, and it's electric hot water heater. And Mr. Cucci starts telling me one of the possible stories about how his father died, which is hilarious to me because much like Christopher Nolan's version of the Joker, where there were many different ways that he got his scars, Mr. Cucci's father died several different ways.
He has. It depends on how much he's been drinking at the time.
So he starts telling me a story about how he was working on the transmission of a car. His father had been, and he was under the car, and he simply died while he was doing it. And he goes, before he starts the story, we're standing in a pool of water working on something electric, and he says, "You know what's funny, Brandon?" And I go, "What?" And he goes, "How sometimes people just die when they're doing things." And that's enough of the story. Get back to the question.
Well,
All right, Seth,
you know,
where do you see yourself in 12 years?
Where do I see myself in 12 years?
Yes.
Probably still around here. Hopefully not doing the same job, making more money in some other enterprise.
What if you owned AJ's then?
That is one possibility that may or may not come out of, living around here for so long.
If you end up owning AJ's someday, will you let me sell a line of comic books about you folks in the store?
Yes, I will. I think that'd only be right.
Okay,
to do so. So, Chris.
Where do you see yourself
now
in
it's
12
on
years?
to you. Where do you see yourself?
Lobotomy, being some kind of blood scientist. I see you in like being some scientist or professor somewhere.
I don't know. It's hard to say. A lot has happened to me in the last even 2 or 3 years. It seems like a lot has happened.
What happened? You moved out of your house. What else has happened?
I don't know. I went to live in Mexico for a couple months.
Okay. You didn't really live there. You stayed there for 2 months. Like I stayed in Japan for 2 months. You didn't live there.
Well, I kind of did, yeah.
Okay, well, and then I lived in Japan for 2 months.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, man. Those weren't like life-changing things. Like we're all still here in Seatown right now.
Yeah. They were though.
No, I don't
They were for
agree with
Chris.
them. I would
Steve,
agree with them.
you may be
2
unchanged.
months. Yeah.
So where do you see yourself in 12 years?
I don't know. Probably some weird monastery kind of setting.
Okay.
Monastic life. Go for Chrispy.
Oh, sorry about the whistle. Still around here, like make your own monastery, or
Or
like
Probably not in Connecticut.
up in the Himalayas?
I don't know.
Okay.
that'd be interesting. Tibetan Chrispy.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think we need to get him on the podcast. He might be a little more airy than the Chrispy we've got, but
Brandle, where do you see yourself 12 years from today?
Here's a problem with that question. Like me dealing with my future, it seems like on a month-to-month basis, I have a new goal for something I want to see done. And
I'm the same way, man.
Yeah, and like every once in a while, I get towards thinking about realistic things I could do, and then I immediately think to myself, but screw that, because like one of the reasons I decided to go back to school was I was like looking historically at the people I respected most, and there were all these people that did like ridiculous things, either like whether they be physicists or inventors and stuff like that, and like that's what I aspire towards, but I see myself as probably just getting distracted like I always do and wandering off somewhere and just ending up in another terrible job doing things I don't want to do. That's like the reality of it. It's just not what I want.
Well, you never know. Maybe you're going to win the lottery in the next 5 years.
Ugh, I hope not. More
Well-
money, more problems.
Assuming we're all alive 12 years from now.
yeah, that'd be another good question to ask.
Maybe
you
maybe you guys can
that.
come back and we can reflect on what we talked about tonight.
But
Not before then.
Couldn't we make it like 12 weeks?
Yeah, I like that idea.
None of you are
better.
allowed back on the show for 12 years.
12
Maybe you guys
minutes?
have your own server by then.
Yeah.
That's no fair.
But I'd like to thank you all again for being on the show tonight. Maybe you can come back at some point in the future, but
Maybe.
not together because this was way too unruly.
Way too much. Use another microphone.
Too unruly.
Yeah.
Come on.
If Rob Fredette buys us another microphone.
I was gonna have to say I was gonna bring his name up, but I figured he'd get that.
I think that already came up once this cast.
Oh, okay. So
But yeah, thanks again. And for folks, if you enjoyed this, please do like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at PRIMO NUTMEG. And if you also did enjoy this and you want to hear more about Rob Fredette, why not listen to his podcast, the RobbocasT, also produced by producer Steve. But thanks again, and until next time.